constraints within our creativity and within our use of the land. Um, and so alongside this focus on compliance, there also has been like a focus on how student organizing looks on campus. There's been a lot of new rules on how we organize. And it's really interesting to take note of this shift and how maybe like these compliances and red lines that we have to work within could provide a safer experience for us students.
And so that safer, better experience for students. Well, good thing we surveyed them to find out how that's going. Um, I wanted to highlight and start with this quote we got through the survey. We could not have asked for like a better just like summary and like answer to our question or research question than this. So thank you, Zerai. Do you mind if I read this quote out? Great, thank you. Do you want to read it? Okay, okay. um, Even though living at Camper Park is not possible anymore, getting to put my energy and passion into this space makes me feel like I'm still connected to that community and everything it stood for. I see this class as a way of honoring the history of Camper Park and showing just how important it was. The fact that we're still here, still engaged with this space, proves that its spirit needed to live on in some way. HSR helps keep that alive by creating a space for connection and community, just like the Camper Park did for so many years. Like, wow. Yeah. That's an amazing quote because it just summarizes like what we're doing here. Like beyond just learning, like sure, it's awesome that we have a class where we can learn design skills, like working with stakeholders, finding funding, navigating systems, like that's all super important. And those like soft skills or apex skills, as Tamara likes to call them, are really important. But like within the context of this class, like they are made so much more important to our students and so much more impactful because of the class's link to implementation of those skills. So this is also another unique component of what we're doing here. Like, just let it sit with you for a second that we're a class based on experiential learning that's designing a space, an outdoor classroom for experiential learning. Like, we're already getting out of that classroom, like, that doesn't even exist yet, what we hope to. Uh, and so, based on the literature, there's 4 components that experiential learning can be broken down into. The first is concrete experience. This is just like getting familiar with the site, whatever topic, problem you're working with, like just getting some firsthand experience. You don't have to be like having an impact on it at all, just like understanding it. And a lot of students already came into the class with that context already, through living at the park or visiting it, hearing secondhand, firsthand accounts of, things that happened there and, the shifts it went through, what the community meant. Um, some students might have even like painted murals there, like built little things there. Um, and so that translates into the class context and to site visits. Like we did spend a lot of time last quarter and this quarter at the site itself, just walking around, taking measurements, thinking out loud to each other. Like this space is empty, but it gets a lot of sunlight. Like what can we put here? Maybe a garden. Like, the person who lived here before was gardening. Maybe it can be a garden again for students to access. Um, Reflective observation is really just taking, everything I just said and synthesizing it into new ideas, new answers to the issue, new interventions. And that's brainstorming, like I just said, not even just at the site, like in our time in and out of the class, at least in my experience and through a lot of other people's what experience they've told me, like it's always on my mind. Like I walk through Camper Park, just sometimes I use the bathroom or like sit there and uh, use the Wi-Fi, so on. And like I'm thinking like, oh man, this space is gonna be so cool someday. And it still is, and it once was as well. Um, and then, taking those brainstorm ideas and designing, like making actual design proposals that you can see in the magazine that we're handing out here. Um, and then hopefully, experimenting with those design proposals into building, real physical objects and structures there. So I kind of just summarize this up with what I just said. The experience transcends the classroom. Like the classroom that we meet in, exists. The classroom we're trying to build doesn't exist yet, but we're already learning from it. Through a lot of unique challenges, it has a lot of direct impact on our lives and the impact we can leave for students ahead of us in the future as well, like the students who lived at Camper Park and helped start it before it did for us now. Um, and you know, in general, like this community is just amazing. Like through our survey responses, everyone said how welcoming and supportive they found everyone in the space to be, um, and how much that just improves the learning experience and engagement and investment in the projects we're working on together.
Now to our findings. Through our extensive research and participation in the Housing Solutions Reimagined class, we uncovered that the history of the Camper Park is very complex. It's very nuanced. There's a lot to uncover and a lot to unpack, a lot of perspectives to hear from. And we figured that HSR is facilitating experiential learning and the same kind of community impact that originated at the Camper Park to today and to the future. Our next steps are project approvals and construction, hopefully. And we hope to continue the course and continue our stakeholder conversations. And please enroll if you haven't and you're not in the class. Enroll. Go for it.
And we really hope that, like, it's not just a presentation we made for this class we were taking together. We had to write a whole research paper. So we have like a 15-page research paper right now about this. And we were, as we were working on it, like, wow, this is information that's written out so clearly. It just isn't really written somewhere, in this like, straightforward format. So we're hoping to maybe get some more perspectives, some more stakeholder and student perspectives, and wrap it up into some kind of like report or little publication, maybe on the website. Maybe next quarter we'll be handing out booklets of the Camper Park story or something.
We will get into our designs very soon, but I wanted to open space maybe for like a couple of questions if anything is feeling super pressing that you need to know about. Wow, you guys are so curious. It's just I'm sure you're all just saving it for the end because you're being respectful. So I guess we can go for it. Oh,
So the question was, what was Camper Park?
so Camper Park was a beautiful community. It lived at right above Kresge. You should go up there sometime. There were 42 trailers, and it started in the 80s. Oh yeah, I can totally do that. You're so smart, Tamara. So these are some pretty cool pictures of when the park had student-owned autonomous trailers. Students could buy and sell them from each other and to each other. And it operated pretty separate from the university while still being a collaborative aspect of the university. We also talked a little bit about some unofficial dwellings that have taken place across our long history on this campus. But the Camper Park was one that was allowed to be there, and it was there for 40 years. In 2017, all the campers were replaced with these like tin campers, and they were kind of operated as like the same way you apply for like a dorm or like an apartment. It was kind of like that process. It allowed for alternative and affordable housing for 40 years, and now we're trying to continue this kind of spirit that lived there through the implementation of learning and community spaces. Yeah. Okay.
And remember, if you're on Zoom, you can drop questions in the chat as well.
Any lingering questions? Sammy. Yes. So I cried really hard when I learned that it was closing. We were told in February, actually, we were told on February 28th, 2024, that the park was going to close and that we had 2 weeks to be out. We had 2 weeks to be out and find another place to live. But the school would help us by placing us in like singles or whatever was open on campus. And there's a very specific person that lives at the Camper Park, and they might be a little stubborn. They might be a little not willing to just leave when we held roots there. So we pushed back, and some of my neighbors had the idea because we were under the impression that like mold was the big concern there, and it definitely was, guys. I did have mold behind my bed, but I made it out. And the suggestion was to cut off the propane tanks. That way we weren't cooking in the campers and they wouldn't like fog up and create some extra moisture. and Dave Keller, who was the interim associate vice chancellor of housing, or college's housing and educational services. um, he allowed us to stay until the end of the academic year. Throughout this whole time, I felt a need to organize. I felt a need to like do something about it. I couldn't just like sit there and watch this happen, watch this space that I cared about so deeply close. So I started a like mutual benefit kind of organization called Hope for Housing. And it was like a space for us to direct our anger and like direct the grief that we were feeling into like action. One of the things that we did was like we had a teach-in at the camper park and we made a big mind map. And my question in the middle was, what would a class about camper park look like? And I wish I had a picture of that mind map, but it did inspire these conversations that started the course itself. So there, there was a lot of grief and a lot of anger, and I don't feel good holding on to those emotions, and I need to transform them into action. And the way that I did that was by bugging all these administrators for months. I sent them a million emails, and I actually was the first person to email Laura before she even started at this school. I found her email and I reached out. Thank you. Lovely.
Yeah, we have another question from Tom on Zoom. Thank you, Tom, for the question. Tom asks, what kind of situations do you think you can apply the skills you're learning here in the future? I was just talking a lot about like what we're learning in the class and how, we're getting so many good soft skills, that have a potential for implementation here. But even before we were like, you know, before there was a Google form to submit design proposals through, we were wondering like, you know, where else can we take these designs? And just hold your horses because you'll see some really unique designs here from students in a couple minutes. Mobile designs, things that can be taken anywhere and don't exist purely in one place. We were looking at, uh, just as like an example, kind of a conceptual problem to work through. We were looking at vacant lots off campus or trailer parks that might need a little bit of repair. And this was mainly last quarter when we were in that kind of like theoretical brainstorming, just like experiencing stage of the project. But I'll speak from my own experience here about, in broader context, how they can be applied. I'm learning a lot of things. Like I hadn't really organized like final presentation or anything like that. And the students who helped out putting it together, our team that put together this process exhibition, we learned how to like make magazines and work with print shops and reserve spaces and all that kinds of stuff. But there's a lot of things from the general design build learning practice that we're working with here. Uh, Learning how to work with stakeholders, I'd say, is like the number one skill that you learn in any kind of thing that we do in the S minor. It's like one of the first concepts you experience. How to navigate the systems and the people that hold power and hold the authority to say yes or no to what you want to do. Any situation, any career we find ourselves in the future, having experience with that will set us up on a level so much higher than someone who's never had experience with that. And for that, we're so fortunate and so thankful to the S minor staff for making that possible and helping us create an environment where we can really do that authentically.
I just have a little bit to add to that. And through this research project, I've been working with these wonderful stakeholders for like over a year, starting in February of last year. Doing this research project was the first time I had considered the environment and students also as stakeholders. These are people who are using the space and the land that it's actually on. So like they need to be core perspectives in our planning. That was a valuable skill I feel like I learned and can apply to all my things. Beautiful. Let's get into it. So we're gonna start with our student designs. We have our magazines. If you don't have one, grab one. And I'm gonna start us off with the canopy classroom. So my whole thing this whole time has been outdoor classrooms. How can I make an outdoor classroom at the camper park? I love to learn. I love untraditional ways of learning. I went to project-based school for 12 years of my life, and it was transformative. I felt like the most I learned was through actually being in spaces that I was applying the skills I was learning. And through the Canopy Classroom, which is a two-parter that you'll hear from Jasper about next, my part is a geodome. So a geodesic dome made from triangles. And you can see a model of one that we beautifully constructed right here in this table. Um, I was inspired by a conversation I had with Asha Deliverance, who owns and runs Pacific Domes. They make the domes and the teepee at the farm and arboretum. And so Asha had come into the Nora Center where I work, and she asked to see our butterfly collection. So I brought out a couple of trays, and she got to talking about how much she loves the school and how much it's a special place for her. She used to live in the woods and all these kinds of stuff. And I heard that and was like, I you lived in the woods. How did you do that? And she talked about how she got into domes. She started this dome company when she was 17 years old, worked at the farm full time because she just showed up when the farm opened and was like, hey, Alan Chadwick, I love this place. And actually, she was just started planning things. She didn't even talk to Alan, just started planning things. And Alan came up to her and was like, I love the way you're doing this. Like, I'm going to give you a full job. When she was like 16 years old, started Pacific Domes when she was 17 and continued on. I was so inspired by her that I like got her contact. And as we were planning these spaces, um, domes came up because a lot of us have ideas that like just need a space. Like we want to learn, we want to create, we want to like play. They just need a space. And domes created that space. They're very easy to put together in a couple of hours. Depending on material, they can be pretty cheap to put together, but they're also pretty sturdy and they can be moved around if like the university decides to use the space for something else. We can pack up that dome and move it somewhere else. Um, she also really got into this idea of harmonic architecture, and that was something I had never heard of before. The idea of like being interconnected with your environment, and the idea that like as humans we're disconnected from the places that we live and exist in if we're not like basing them off of the ecology that surrounds it. That was beautiful to me, and I also really liked domes because I really like circles. And another thing was I have a wonderful mentor that I look up to. His name is Ken. He volunteers at the North Center. He told me about how he lived in a dome in the 70s, and it was a wonderful experience. He was on a commune in a dome, um, and it taught him carpentry because he figured that he needed to make all his furniture custom because it's a circle, not a square. And it was interesting to hear that perspective. I think like just this conversation around domes has like really made me like think a lot about how we can be in coordinates with our environment. Max had talked about how like he thinks about the class all the time. I've been dreaming about domes for like 2 weeks, guys. Like that's all I think about because I just think they're so cool. And I really like the idea of using natural material. Last quarter we talked about hempcrete. We also brought up bamboo. Thomas has had a class where he made a micropod with bamboo, and I would love to create a dome with some natural materials, and that is what we call the canopy classroom.
Hello. So I was also helping out with the Dome committee as well. And part of the ideas that we were looking at is, as Natalie mentioned, like the structural integrity of these designs are maximized because of the triangular forces that are being exerted on each other. So I was really having a lot of fun exploring the different frequencies of domes and thinking about a way that we could maybe make the spaces interconnected. So there were a lot of different ideas for what we could actually fill up the space with and put inside of these structures. And I wanted to explore the idea of making them interconnected. And we can do that by extending the struts, which are like the beams of the domes. And that was something that I was looking at. And then I just essentially spaced it out on a Camper Park map. But yeah, I wanted to look at the idea of creating a tunnel space at the front of a dome because if we mapped out a 6-foot radius of one of those domes there, it would be a bit too short for like someone of say Max's size, 6 foot about to actually stand in. So I was thinking, how could we make a space where we can still be ADU compliant of 120 square feet, but also have like a bigger structure in the back. So the tunnel portion of what you're looking at here is actually the 120-foot ADU, and then the back end of that structure would be like a garden space. And I wanted to, this kind of ties into Shada's project as well, where she did a more of a deep dive on the garden analysis. But yeah, I just wanted to take a look at that, because then we're technically not overstepping any sort of safety hazards or fire hazards with making we can make an open air space that's over 120 square feet. So yeah, that was kind of my analysis of the geodome, but thank you.
And I just want to add that if you have any questions during the student presentations or after them, feel free to raise your hand and ask.
Hey guys. Yeah, so this was my idea for my half of the canopy classroom project. It's the same site as the previous geodome. I thought it would be a good idea if after like whatever project is presented in the canopy classroom, if there was a space for students to collaborate and talk, or just to like hang out. And going with the sort of theme of embracing the environment with your designs, I thought it would be a great idea to use the trees that in this site are a perfect little circle. UC Santa Cruz has like a long history of building tree nets in various parts of campus, but a lot of the time they get taken down because the school is concerned about safety. So for this project, I wanted to make it super safe, very low to the ground. As you can see, here's like an example net of a super crazy, chaotic one that has been worked on and like kind of unplanned, which is super cool that this structure can be something that people just like come up with and like add on to in a very free form, like amorphous way. And for my project, I wanted to like plan it out like a little more, have a nice little entry hole in the bottom for people to crawl into, and then hang out, lie down, talk to each other, stare up at the trees, um, and also with various methods to protect the trees from actual like rope damage, which is possible to do if you take like vertical wooden slats. Um, and wrap the tree around rather than like tightly girdling the tree with the ropes. And yeah, that's the tree net. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Morgan. My partner Audrey is not here right now, but she worked on this project last quarter, so I'm continuing it this quarter and will be next quarter. Basically, this was inspired by the need for more wellness spaces on campus. It's my first year, so I haven't been able to indulge in all the places on campus. But when I did first come, I noticed the gym is only on one side of campus. And when I came into this class, I was talking to Audrey about it, and she had already started this project because she works as a yoga instructor um, at the um, at the yoga studio, but it's currently in a dance room. So we wanted to make our own structure out of the needs of the students, and we wanted it to be on the other side of campus so that students didn't have to go as far to be able to take care of their bodies. So this is our second structure that we created. The one that we made before didn't have a room in the front. It was just a platform with a canopy on top, but we decided to make this one with a room so that we could have storage and then also spaces to check in. And then we also wanted to collaborate with different clubs on campus so that students would be able to use this space to be able to teach about wellness, like maybe the health center and then also like the women's center, so that we can really get students involved on campus with wellness and health and taking care of their bodies. We also are going to add bifacial paneling on top because we wanted to make our project the most sustainable we possibly could. And it is located in RCC, so this is on the west side of campus. And yeah, that's pretty much it for now.
Hey, this one's me. Um, so if y'all are familiar with my design from last time, I was talking about my design was pretty similar. It did have a storage space and some seating and kind of like a classroom area. But the ideas evolved a little bit based on some things we learned about policy and like permitting requirements and so on. So this really illustrates like our understanding and our proposed implementation of a space. Uh, so here you can see on the bottom left of that page, there's a prefabricated shed. Um, and to our understanding, we don't need a permit, but we do need permission, obviously, to put one in that space. But just like a prefabricated shed, it's a product, you know, it's built to code, it's structurally sound. Another team that's working on a completely different project up at Camper Park has a storage unit there. So we were kind of taking inspiration from them and the progress they made with that. We really do just like, you know, we can't like build a building without a spot to store materials there. And we have some very small storage bins there. But for, you know, materials that we might need in the future, it'd be nice to just have like a, you know, real sturdy space to keep it. And then whether or not that continues to be its purpose can evolve. So this could become storage for anything. You know, we could keep gardening supplies in there, upkeep, maintenance, stuff like that. Especially important would be a spot to store just general S minor projects. You know, there's so many awesome ideas and we're running out of space. We don't really have that much to begin with. And we're clearing out the lab that we were working in before because of some other unrelated reasons. And we're great partners with Slugworks and the DSI, but you know, it's their space, so we can't like store our projects there. So to have a spot to like just securely lock up our projects would be amazing. Um, and then who doesn't love a labyrinth? You know, I was thinking about like what to put in that space and just like some of the most peaceful moments of my life. I started the new year, or I ended off last year by walking in a labyrinth at the Santa Cruz Interfaith Vigil for Peace. And it was just like amazing to see so many different people, complete strangers to me, walking, you know, meditating, and, you know, peace and shared solitude, which is just amazing. And, you know, to have a spot like that, we have the path, but, you know, labyrinth is a labyrinth, right? It speaks for itself. Um, and then this, I've named a covered trellis. So a garden trellis is technically an open structure, but you know, like, what if you wanted to just hang out in there, do some gardening, maybe have a meditation class like we've had there before, you know, closer to the outdoors, so you can like feel the breeze and you can hear the birds chirping around you. Um, so it could be without these tarp walls, but we have some extra some leftover tarp materials, and you know, there's a sailing team on campus, so anything like sailcloth or maybe like recycled netting could be used, you know, upcycled into a structure like this. And in terms of like what to put inside, I designed it to be flexible and very low impact. The spots at Camper Park are currently
UCSC Eastern
there's asphalt there, so you know we could just sit directly on the ground. But if you want a little bit of comfort and to, you know, raise off the damp, cold concrete, maybe some recycled pallets with just simple outdoor cushions on them would be a really cheap, low impact solution. And then to make the space function as a garden as well, because I designed it, although it is flexible and can work in any spot on Camper Park or at Leonardo Lane. Um, I, in this design, put it in one of the spots near the entrance, which is very sunny and was being planned to be built as a garden. So I put some garden boxes in there, and of course, it'd be amazing to have plants inside the space. But for the sake of my computer, when I was modeling, it couldn't handle any more trees or plants, so there's pallets there. Yeah, thank you.
Hello. Can I bring this down, do you think? I'm tall enough, right? So talk about growing. The camper park actually used to have multiple gardens, and last year in the class, there were a few people who wanted to create this holistic garden design. It was in the first two or three, or in the first three empty spots at Camper Park, which gets the most sunlight. And instead of that, I'm kind of working with that idea and wanting to create some sort of greenhouse structure. And as I was doing my research about greenhouses, I started getting into domes. And we've heard a little bit about domes. I love them. And I've begun to love them a lot more, just learning about how good they are for growing. With rectangular greenhouses, which is the second option, but want to do that. I want to do a dome. They're both great for greenhouses and growing, but with domes, you're getting enough sunlight from all different areas. And with what Summer was talking about with that extendo entrance, I kind of have that there's like a diagram. It's kind of hard to see from here, but in the magazines are a little bit easier. Having that entrance be like some sort of living wall or like storage space going into the growing dome. And being able to have raised beds that can either be in there or be able to be movable if it ever needs to be taken down and moved to a different location. As well as because there were multiple gardens in the camper park initially, I wanted to keep that space going for workshops. And there's so many gardens on campus with people that are really passionate about growing and agro and all those sorts of things. So yeah, it's also just space that could be used for food and growing food, and it's just very continuing with that learning that we love. Oh, I forgot about this.
This is our dome that we made yesterday.
We spent a lot of time making this. We decided to also put little plastic wrap over it at home, and I think we actually might try to grow some things in there because that's kind of exactly how it would work. That's the model over there, by the way. Super cool. It's with wire and straws, FYI.
We're the right height. Okay, my name's Elise. I'm Zerai. So our project, we didn't really originally start with this, but we decided to focus on creating a mobile makerspace. And our main thought is to convert a previously used box truck into a place where students can go and be creative and learn skills without having to enroll in a class or pay any money or anything else. I was really inspired to work on this project because I love being creative, and I've always wanted to say like work on a pottery wheel or a sewing machine, but without enrolling in a class or having certain prerequisites. It's really difficult to get to do that on this campus. So I just thought this would be a really great opportunity to both encompass sustainability and also have a new resource for students. Yes, going off of everything she just said, I was really inspired by my passion for upcycling and sewing and anything related to sustainability. And I wanted a space to do that on campus. So there was the idea through talking with Thomas and collaborating. That's where we found that a mobile maker space would be really beneficial because not only can it be used on campus for students to come to, it would be housed in kind of near the entrance of Camper Park. Those are like our spot ideas, but it's also mobile to go to communities outside of campus and try to make creativity and the arts more accessible to everybody. Also, another big aspect of this was being able to host groups and gatherings for workshops, any clubs or organizations that wanted to bring their congregation to be able to sew, make buttons, which you guys can do over there in a second. We got sewing machines and materials and button makers. And yeah, that's yeah, oh, and then we also have, this is our 3D model that we made. We made it in SketchUp. Here is like
an idea of that, and then also our physical model, which you can find over there. And you can also, once we move into that section of this, play with it and suggest your own ideas for our layout because all of the pieces are movable. Yeah.
So we just, for some of the features that we want to be present in the mobile maker space, most of it is storage just because we really want people to be able to create anything they want to, whether it be posters or pottery or upcycling their clothes or even just repairing their clothes or anything. So we have a lot of storage, and then we have a window in the side, as you can see, for dual in and outdoor workspaces. So if we're parked up at the former camper park space or moved around the community, people still have that connection to nature and to their environment. And then finally, we wanted to, as Arai was saying, be a space for congregation and have enough room for clubs and groups to all bring themselves and their friends and bring everyone in so everyone can work together creatively. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yes.
All right. Hello. Hello. Max, could you help me with this really quick? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Max. Hi, guys. My name is actually also Max. Thank you so much for being here. Before we actually talk about our project, we wanted to do a quick survey. If we could have everyone, if you're comfortable, raise your hands if you've ever been to Cal Coffee Shop or know what Cal Coffee Shop is. Oh my gosh, okay. This is great. Yeah, have a little less explaining to do. I'll talk about it anyway. I've had the pleasure of working at Cal Coffee Shop for over a year now. Basically what we are is we're a non-transactional cafe, meaning everything is completely free. Oh, that's awesome. We provide meals for food insecure students on campus. We get a lot of our produce from the farm on campus as well. And Cal Coffee Shop is a really great community space. It's a great place to study, make friends, listen to great music, eat great, healthy, nutritious food. But there is a huge gap in accessibility due to mostly the open hours. It's open from 10 to 3:30, and people need to eat dinner too. So we decided to create a basic needs kitchen, which would be expanding food accessibility on campus, particularly to commuting students, and allowing them the opportunity to make their own food at other times throughout the day. And with that, maybe Peggy, do you want to talk a little bit more about our design process and everything?
So being a class in the sustainability minor and also working within the limitations of the camper park, we created a mobile kitchen. It's on a 7x15 trailer, so it could be pulled by a car or a truck. And some other design features are like the mobile makerspace. We have this opening window so that the truck could or the trailer could function as a food truck, but also a community kitchen that anyone is free to use. We have in the design solar panels, so that would be powering our 2 electric stoves inside the kitchen and the sink pump. And also additionally on the trailer, we have plenty of storage and counter space and also some seating. There's better pictures. We're gonna have our sketch up over here on a computer if you want to see the details. We also have some like a fold down table and some seating inside the trailer. But yeah, our inspiration was really food creates community, and we want to keep that community and keep healthy food at the camper park. So yeah, thank you.
Oh. Question?
I do have a question. Totally not planted or anything. I was wondering if you could talk to how this like kind of continues like the spirit of like potlucks and sharing, and like there was a fermentation co-op and just like so many events around food at Camper Park in the past. So how do you see this fitting into that in the future?
Well, not just Camper Park. I think the reason why this space is so awesome is because it would be completely mobile, so we could bring it literally anywhere on campus, which we're super excited about. Thank you, Max. Oh, this is amazing. We're super excited about that. Um, and yeah, fermentation co-op. I just think generally the idea of having a space that is mobile, providing these options for people to be creative with their food is really important. I think obviously Cal Coffee Shop is great because you get amazing food, but like being able to, use the options that are excess from the farm or bring your own things and be able to make things yourself. I think that's the main point. So yeah, creativity, super important, as you've seen throughout this whole thing so far. Thank you guys.
Well, I'll help you. Yeah, unfortunately, Tahoe couldn't make it today, but Ivy is here as well. And Ivy kind of joined the class a little late as a, yeah. Actually, she came to the mentoring, environmental mentorship event that Natalie helped put on, and wanted to join the class as a volunteer. Um, but um, but I'll just say a few words about this project. It's kind of unique in that it's creating like outdoor furniture, outdoor features at the camper park. So these are ideas for not for an enclosed structure, but like an outdoor workbench, like vertical farming elements, planters that have already been proposed and I think approved, some seating areas made out of natural materials. Um, yeah, and so and this kind of is an interesting project as well because it incorporates the whole camper park and creates you know a holistic, almost landscape design, landscape architecture project for the camper park as a whole. And these are also very small projects that students could manage very easily. Say on a weekend, we could be building one or two of these features. Ivy, did you want to say anything else about? Okay.
Hello. Okay. So yeah, I've been to the camper park I think like once last week and I saw it was like a really wide open space but not that big, and I was told earlier that it used to be filled with gardens. So I thought it was like a really good idea to bring in like little planters around and fill the space back up with the gardens that it used to once have. And we thought that the vertical gardens would be a really good idea to separate some spaces but still provide some vegetables and greens, and probably have like some clubs come together to plant whatever they want to plant on the vertical gardens. We came up with the ideas of having rectangular log shaped benches around the camper park so people can have plenty of space to sit down and, I don't know, just admire the view. We also had like other ideas that wasn't really on there, like a compost bin in case you want to like have somewhere to throw away your food and you can still be sustainable doing it, and bird houses because there must be a lot of birds there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Great, fabulous. Oh, do you have a question?
For those on Zoom who may not have heard, if I could summarize this a little, well, it was basically an observation about how a lot of these presentations, despite the class being Housing Solutions Reimagined, are more like third spaces, which I don't know if I could define it very well, but it's basically places that you are not intended to live, but you are to exist, I guess. And you were talking a little bit about like having communal spaces, which is more about what these all are and how throughout all of the different housing fiascos and such. Sure. You have a third space definition for me, Max? Because I understand Laura. Laura. Yeah, Laura's got a third space. It's Laura.
Hey, Laura Arroyo. Nice to meet you. Third space theory, I think we're using, it seems to be used loosely in this space, which I appreciate because I think that we ideas form new meanings, right? So I think third space theory and the way that you're thinking about it is really creative and interesting. Third space theory is about spaces of hybridity. So it's actually not about the space itself. It's not a formal space. It's the learning and the thought and the culture that's created that's different in the third space. So it's thinking through identity in two different ways, and what the third space becomes is a space of learning of difference that happens fluidly and not necessarily about the formal environment of the space. It's the learning that occurs. So in many ways, third space theory is questioning social norms. It's a space that allows for the questioning of social norms through the connections and intersections of identity. So I want us to be thoughtful of that, because third space theory is, it's very different than I think the way that it's being interpreted here. And I think that's okay, but I also want to say, one of the beauties of creating these spaces is the language, the identity, the cultural connections that can happen here. And so I don't want to lose that in the idea of the way that we talk about third space, right? Because it's not just about having another space. It's the learning and the energy that can happen in that space that makes something different and makes it vibrant. So, and that was some of my like doctoral work. So sorry.
Don't be sorry. You explained that so well. Max?
Could I ask a follow-up question either for Laura or yourself? How do you see what's going on at Camper Park or Leonardo Lane as fitting into that, third space theory mindset that you have, especially with your own background and your role as a housing administrator with oversight at the site?
I will get back to that, what you said also, by the way, once we're done with this.
So another way to think about third space theory, that's another word that's been used here, is experiential learning. And Max, I really appreciated how you talked through the definition and you really defined what experiential learning can bring. I think that's really helpful. It's helpful to think about it. Experiential learning and third space theory completely connect, because it's a way to think through the ways that we can learn and be in a space that is different, right, than formal. The formal ways that we think about sitting in a space and here I am talking to you, right? Like experiential learning is learning through doing in so many ways. So I love that connection. I also just love that the history of Camper Park, one, isn't being forgotten, because cultures remember things through stories, and it's storytelling work, right? And I always worry that with a change, we forget where we came from. And I really appreciate that you're honoring that, and you're not, but you're also figuring out what the space could become that's different than what it was before. So I think that's really beautiful. So that's how I think about those pieces. And then to your question around housing, so a whole other conversation we could have is about the things that we're doing through colleges, housing, and educational services to increase housing on campus. We could have a whole conversation about that. So there's lots of things we're doing, including many, many new housing projects. That is not to say that we should forget the impact that was caused by the closing of Camper Park. I don't ever want to lose that memory and that history and that impact, right? And the trauma that caused for students, because it was all of those things. And there's at the same time things that we're doing to make sure that there's additional housing on campus for students who deeply need it. We have about 50% of our students on campus in housing, and that means 50% aren't living with us. And I always want to create housing that is accessible to students and also affordable to students. So it's a major goal of mine. So I'd say, to your question, it's not happening at Camper Park right now. It's happening elsewhere too.
Awesome.
I didn't
No,
anticipate-
no, it's okay. What I was going to say was also bouncing off of that, just talking about how when we came to this space, we had the understanding from different stakeholders that there is already some sort of concept of a plan called the long-range development plan. Yes, killed it. And because of that, it was not encouraged for us to immediately create spaces for people to live in. And so instead of that, while that process and that long plan that we will not probably, none of us will see while we're here, we wanted to do something that can be there and be that sort of third space learning space instead.
And I just want to add on to that, like, as someone I never lived at Camper Park, but I'm very good friends with someone who did, and like the I guess it's like a privilege, but also the opportunity to be able to like be part of that space and find myself and find like a place there, and to see it continue on is very special to me. You know, it's the only spot on campus where I like forget I'm on campus. And that's kind of like surprising, right? For a spot where you can literally hike between classes for 10 minutes, right? And like not see a building at all. Um, and it's just, there's something special about that space. And you know, it does, I think, challenge, you know, social norms. It allows us to do that. Like I just said, as one example. Um, but also, you know, with like the political climate we're in right now in the world and at UCSC, it's becoming increasingly difficult to feel safe, challenging social norms, which is like, as you know, young university students, one of the things we should probably be prioritizing during our time here. You know, we can discover more about the people around us and ourselves by doing that. So to like feel safe and feel supported, creating a space with one of the intentions being that in a way that's agreed upon and supported is like incredibly unique. And also, great lead into a bonus thing we're doing here. So this is not an HSR project, but just like as an example of the things that are starting to happen up at Camper Park, we are starting a new cob oven. Oh, there should be a picture here. There you go. So I won't take too much time on this. I just wanted to highlight it because it's like another fun project that's happening there, and another fun project that'll, you know, create a new cornerstone for community to gather around, and matches all like ticks all the boxes of things we're trying to do there. It's temporary, it's portable, it's like supports students' quality of living, and it provides food and new opportunities. So the UCSC Sustainability Minor has been known for a while for our quarterly pizza parties. We've been making pizzas in this tiny little mobile cob oven, who knows who built so long ago. And the thing's falling apart. But, you know, till its very last pizza party, it was a beloved, you know, touch point of what we're doing here. You know, we've handed out our homemade upcycled silk tie graduation stoles there. This class was first conceptualized at a pizza party. I think like every big idea we've had for like any event probably has started at a pizza party or continued out of a conversation that happened at one. So it's very special to us, that all being said. And we're making some new improvements over the last design, including a larger trailer and oven, just like who doesn't want more pizza. It's gonna be built out of cob with Buckeye Natural Builders, so thank you, Miles, for being here and representing some of our favorite community partners for the S minor. Not that we play favorites, but we're gonna have like a workshop there. And it might be a good lead up to building a larger structure, maybe like a shed or some kind of garden storage, like a natural building, structure built out of natural materials. And there's also going to be like a trailer base that we put this on, that can hook up to a car so we can take it wherever we need to. It doesn't need to live forever at Camper Park, but it'd be great to have that space available to build it there. And we could store materials and, stage whatever might need to go into this design in like a shed if the S minor could get one there. Yeah. So thank you all for listening to us so respectfully and diligently, and we would love to have an opportunity now to engage in dialogue with you. So if you look around the room, sorry for people on Zoom, I'll give you a better view in a second, but if you look around the room, there's a number of workshop stations from each of the student designs that you just heard about. So if you want a chance to go talk to students and help explore their designs, work with them, see how you might be a part of it for all you students here who aren't in the class, now's your opportunity. So again, thank you all. We have food in the back. And then after the workshop, for about an hour, however long the crowd needs, then we'll start like a jam session. We have some instruments, so if any of you are musicians here, we'd love to hear you play. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you all again for coming. Yeah, we'll break out and we have different workshop stations. Miles here from Buckeye Builders, while we've been presenting, he's been sketching up some ideas of what we could build next quarter, and that is the goal, is to next quarter to start with the construction process, and that might, the projects are all different, so what that means might be different for different projects. But I really encourage you to interact with the students, and what we have here is a real treasure chest, I believe, of like innovation. So it's very easy to kind of shut these down and say, no, you can't do this, you can't because of X, Y, and Z. But maybe it's more of a challenge for all of us to think about how we could make these projects happen, get them to the next level, and really make this a successful journey for our students. So thanks a lot.
And also, if anyone has any questions in general, now would be a good time to ask, or feel free to workshop.